there are more things out of our control in the world than are in our control. So accepting that if there's a lot that's unknowable, the only option you really have is to be adaptable, to adapt to the unforeseen circumstances. And in the maze of life, you have to hit some dead ends. You have to hit the dead ends to know where the dead ends are. Just like in training, I get smothered. Great example. Rolling with Kevin Goat. He's a monster.
Right.
Okay. I will get smothered and I literally have no idea what to do. And all he's not even choking me, but he's just massive and he's smothering me. And for the first couple times, you're like, literally, there is no answer to this, but there is. I just don't know it yet.
Right.
I haven't learned it yet, but it's there because it can be done.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, cool. If you understand that even though you might not know what to do in the moment, you can learn what to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is another week and another episode of the Budo Brothers podcast. You got Kyle.
And Eric.
And today we want to talk about the mythical land of the unknown.
Ooh, tell me more.
What happens when you don't know what the future holds. And the place I think where we can make it most evident is when you're in a sparring session and you get into deep water and you're getting beat like a bad habit. And you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this or how I'm going to survive this or make it out of this. And like, you don't want to tap or you don't want to like just get out of there. So you cowboy up and you're like, okay, I don't know the answer, but I know that if I try something, it's better than doing nothing.
Yeah. And
I could recently think I was in a choke, right? I'm like, okay, I'm freaking stuck here. What do I do? Okay, tuck my chin. Oh, okay. Feels good. I could breathe here. Yeah? All right, I got some time. Try to wiggle my hips out. Oh, okay, got them to the floor. Okay, yeah, turn and face. And you just gradually find the answer by trying little things and seeing if it worked. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, this worked. And hopefully you make it back. But that's not always a guarantee. Sometimes you do have to tap out. But in life and in martial arts, dealing with the unknown is a very difficult thing. It causes massive amounts of stress and anxiety for people, including myself and probably yourself.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with not knowing?
I think you first have to accept that there's things in life that are unknowable. We do not know the future. There are a lot of things that we can predict, but there are more things out of our control in the world than are in our control. So accepting that if there's a lot that's unknowable, the only option you really have is to be adaptable, to adapt to the unforeseen circumstances. And in the maze of life, you have to hit some dead ends. You have to hit the dead ends to know where the dead ends are. Just like in training, I get smothered. Great example. Rolling with Kevin Goat. He's a monster.
Right.
Okay. I will get smothered and I literally have no idea what to do. And all he's not even choking me, but he's just massive and he's smothering me. And for the first couple times, you're like, literally, there is no answer to this, but there is. I just don't know it yet.
Right.
I haven't learned it yet, but it's there because it can be done.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, cool. If you understand that even though you might not know what to do in the moment, you can learn what to do.
And everybody in their life has these pivotal moments where you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you could either choose to jump, fly, jump, die, or turn back and just go live life the same way that you could, right?
Ooh.
And there's this trifecta of decisions, because everybody would love to believe that every risk you take and every hard decision you make is going to have a positive outcome. That's simply not true, especially in martial arts. That's why there's one UFC champion. Everybody else got beat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You know, you went in there thinking you're top dog, you're alpha, and you got beat. Everybody's record generally gets smashed, right? At least once.
Yeah.
There's a few that made it through.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're at the ledge, you have those three options. I'm going to jump and fly, jump and die, or return to business as usual. And when you're sitting there in this edge of unknowing, the hardest thing on your body, on your mind, on your state of being is running stories and options and all of these different things that decreases your happiness about all of these options, right? Because you have three. They can all happen from your action, right? You can either do it or not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's it. It's binary. But when you sit there and spin around in all of the problems, you beat yourself up more times than that decision ever could.
Inaction.
Yes.
Inaction is the worst option. Doing nothing and standing there and running this paralysis by analysis. There is no result that comes of it other than you staying stagnant and not growing. And yes, jump and fly and jump and die. Die is an extreme. But if you jump and it doesn't work out, it's an opportunity as well.
Yes.
Only because you and I have done it way too many times to prove that failing is that acronym, first action in learning, which is going to get you back to the drawing board, go back into the lab. That experiment that you just ran didn't work. If you can have the mindset to try and say, why didn't it? What can I do different next time? Oh, what if I do that? Now that's growth.
Yes.
You threw out a tester, you jumped, and it failed. And guess what? Statistically, most of them will. Most of your attempts aren't going to work. And the biggest lessons that you're going to gain are from the ones that don't work. So you have an opportunity to go and hit a success, or you have an opportunity to learn. And if that's a different mindset where you're, because the fear of failure is what causes the paralysis.
Yeah.
Being scared will cause inaction. It will cause you to stay stagnant. Fear is a powerful force, and it's difficult to get over. So if you can get over it by knowing that whatever happens is an opportunity for growth, regardless of the outcome. You're going to grow because you hit the mark, or you're going to learn not what to do, which is going to make you stronger the next time you try. And the key is to try again and not get bucked off that horse.
Yeah. One thing that has always helped me, and it really relates to Budo, is being comfortable with death, being comfortable with the worst result. A lot of the situations, like you said, aren't death.
Yes.
Life and death matters.
Yeah.
But if you in your mind can position yourself where you are comfortable that if this action kills me, I will try this business, and if it fails, I will starve and die. I'm okay with that because I'm living the life I chose.
Damn.
You're invincible.
That's true.
Right? You're invincible. And the way I know that it is the proper, most tranquil way to do things is if you go back to ancient times, where you have a warrior on a battlefield whose option is to fight and win, or they die.
Yeah.
Right? or flee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those were their options. And those warriors stood there. And let's take 300, for example, because it's the most common story that everybody knows. Those 300 warriors stood there and said, I'm willing to die right now to defend everything I love. Right? And a lot of them did. And that story is still talked about today.
And you know what? It was probably a good death.
Yeah.
Dying for something you believe in is probably a good way to go.
But they got through the fear of the absolute worst situation. And now I look at that, I'm like, damn. These guys did this action and knew that the outcome was death.
Yeah.
Here I am worried about my simple little problem. Why can't I just try? Right? Why can't I just try? And there's nothing that if you're comfortable with death, none of it matters.
Yeah. What can stop you?
Nothing.
That's
the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah. So it's a cheat code.
It is a cheat code. Morbid as hell.
Yeah.
but a cheat code.
Yeah. Dale Carnegie. I took Dale Carnegie training when my first job. They paid for it too, so I was like, sweet. I love professional development. Sign me up.
Right.
And it was really, really valuable. There, I learned some really good stuff. And one of the key principles of the program, there was one that was talking about how you need to be comfortable with the worst possible outcome.
Right.
And often the worst possible outcome rarely happens.
Yeah.
But if you can get comfortable with that worst possible outcome, that will make you comfortable taking the action. Very rarely does the action, when you say, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, blah, 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 and it's disaster after disaster. It's like, okay, statistically, in reality, how likely is that to happen? It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
But if you can get comfortable with the worst possible outcome that you can dream up, what do you have to lose?
So true.
So this is right on point. It's the same principle.
Same principle. And it's never as bad as you think.
Yeah.
And it's never as good as you think.
Uh-huh.
That should be a law. Like, it's rarely ever as bad as you think. It's rarely ever as good as you think. It's usually somewhere in the middle of those 2 points. One of the biggest teachers, though, of just this unpredictableness was COVID.
Yeah.
I bet you everybody started off that year with some type of plan that looked completely and utterly different than what was going on by the end of that year. Who could have planned that?
I don't think many people had their businesses being forced to shut down on their bingo card.
Right.
That was probably not a consideration. But for the entrepreneurs that went into this business being comfortable knowing that the risks they're taking could not work out and they'd be comfortable with it, they'll be in a position to deal with it from a place of level-headedness and not panic. One of the things that I did all the time when I first started training in jiu-jitsu, and I still do it, is when I get lost and I don't know what to do, I start panicking. Start breathing heavy, and guess what? I'm in quicksand. I'm digging my own grave.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got slapped up the head. Just chill out, bro. Quit spazzing.
I think that's a very common thing when you are in the land of the unknown.
Yes.
You panic. And just like in COVID, in martial arts, in a situation, you walk down an alley and you're like, oh man, I don't know what to do in this situation. Your first thing is panic. And even with this self-defense stuff, it's like you have to try to calm down and settle into that moment.
It's so true. How often, or can you think of a story where it went like this? Yeah, this happened. I panicked and it worked out so great. That is a very rare story.
Yeah, that's like a statistic. Those stats are pretty low for the panic.
It's usually I panicked and I crashed the car. I panicked and panic is usually followed by not the outcome you were hoping for.
Because when you panic, you lose consciousness.
Yeah.
You lose the ability to consciously problem solve.
Yes. Yeah.
And you completely are subject to the moment.
Precisely. And the antidote to panic is calmness. Calm. When you're drowning and a swimmer's they're panicking because they can't swim, and then someone comes to save them and they're thrashing around, they're gonna drown the dude who's here to save you. If you just let the water take you and let the guy take you to safety.
And the cheat code to panic, and this is a universal cheat code. When you're in a state of panic, the first thing to bring you out of that state is to focus on your breath.
Yeah.
To focus on breathing, right? When you're in that state, your breath. That's why all these Navy SEALs, all of these people teach the breathing method. When these fighters go, they work on their breathing method because it helps you to slow your heart rate. When your heart rate is in that elevated state, just naturally you're in a state of panic. And when we as humans take the time to practice breathing via meditation, via yoga, via martial arts, via diving, via sports, it calms us. It brings us back to center, because the breath is life, right? It is the center of all life. Oxygen is how we survive. Without it, it is the simplest thing you could do to get you out of a panic state. Even I find if you are having a crazy intense day and you are in this chaotic mess, if you could let go for a moment, take a second to yourself and focus on your breathing, it can really change the trajectory of the day.
It's true. I also think there is huge value in bringing awareness to how you're feeling.
Yes.
When you're panicked and you're in a state of panic, like I just said, you are in a state of panic. If you realize you're in a state of panic, even just knowing, whoa, I am freaking out, I'm panicking. Why am I? Breathe.
That actually has to happen, yeah.
It has to happen first.
Yeah.
You have to be aware that you're panicking. You have to be aware that you're scared shitless. That awareness has to be there. You have to observe it.
So how do you improve your awareness?
Meditation. That helps.
Definitely.
And seeing what it feels like.
Yeah, I definitely see the value in checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
In a meditation. I have done practices where you're like, how am I feeling today? What am I angry about? What is on my mind? And like, even just asking yourself those questions, seeing what the first thing that comes into your thoughts is. It's a pretty cool tool. Like I must say that it does help bring awareness to your thoughts.
Being able to observe your thoughts is a muscle. Yeah. Being able to observe how you feel. Sometimes people, I know people that are so miserable that they don't even know they're miserable. They're too busy being miserable.
Yeah.
And why is that guy happy? And victim and that and what they don't realize is they're in that quicksand.
Yeah.
You're making it worse.
Yeah.
If you're like, wow, why am I so pissed off? What is it deep down that's really eating away at me, that's causing me to lash out in other areas that have nothing to do with it?
And the realest thing that I was ever taught is that you are the root of all of your problems.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You are the root
it's the truth
of all of your problems. And when you take accountability and ownership of that, it starts to help with awareness too.
Big time. Taking ownership, responsibility. That's the other thing. Responsibility. Response ability. Are you able to respond? Can you take responsibility for your life? Can you observe, wow, things are not going my way because of the actions and the decisions that I've been making, hoping for a result that's not happening? Boom, that's that dead end of the maze where you need to be aware enough to look at your situation and drop the ego. Hey, this isn't working, or this isn't what I want. That's when you have to make a change. That's when you have to start to dig in to the depths of who you are, make some changes, and try something new.
And everybody is under the belief that we should have it figured out. I don't think one person on this planet has it all figured out. Like,
no way.
It's impossible because it is unknown. Everything is unknown. So no person could have it figured out. That is impossible unless you're a time traveler.
For sure.
Right? So this fallacy that everybody's like, man, I should be more of this. I should have it figured out. By 30, I should have it figured out. By 40, I should have it figured out. By 50, I should have it figured out. Like, sometimes I look at what a 30 to 40-year-old acts like, and I'm like, how are these people teachers? Right? You know? How are these people parents? How are these people leading the industry in this?
Sure.
Because you look at them and you're just like, they're just people with the same amount of problems and the same amount of issues as everybody else.
Yes.
And sometimes, they get put on a pedestal because they're in this role or in this position, even to themselves, like, oh man, I'm a doctor. I have to be this, or like, I'm worth millions of dollars. I should feel happy.
I got it made. I got it figured out.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is like you were saying, I should have it figured out by I'm 30. I should have it figured out by I'm 40. Sure, you could figure out the things that a 30 or 40-year-old should be figuring out. But guess what? By the time you're 40, you got a whole new set of issues that you didn't have because you've achieved a certain level, and life is not going to quit throwing things at you.
And how many times do you wish, like, man, if I could go back in time, I would do it this way. And it would just completely
so much easier.
Yeah.
But that's impossible because you wouldn't have learned the lesson that gave you the knowledge through challenge. So it's a fun mind experiment, but it's impossible. That's why you have to be open. When challenges come your way, welcome them.
Right.
Because there's something there to learn. There's something there that it's there to teach you something.
Yeah.
Even if it's something, how not to do something.
Right. Budo Brothers Challenge.
Oh, I think try and every day check in with yourself. That was like good advice.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one. And if you're new to meditation, set up a time where you're going to do this. Could be for 1 minute. Could be for 30. Could be in the between of those extremes. And just sit there in silence. And if you don't know what to do, either focus on your breath by counting it, or just ask yourself, how am I feeling today?
Mm-hmm. That's a good practice. And I think that will bring awareness to how you feel. And then with that awareness, you can snap yourself out of a state of panic, a state of fear, a state of misery.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more valuable than that ability to unleash the pressure valve that is causing that turmoil by becoming aware of it.
Love it.
Beautiful.
All right. That's it until next week.
Until next week.